Good afternoon. Welcome to World Cup Daily here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Chris Bell. Delighted to say I'm joined by Gareth Walker to talk all things 2026 World Cup. But of course, over the course of the weekend, we've seen the conclusion of the quarter-finals of the World Cup. How was your weekend, Gaz? Was it decent? Made better by the England game, I hope?
Yeah, I was saying before we went live, that was the only one that I properly watched. The others I've seen the highlights, so I've had them on in the background. It was just it's a hot one, wasn't it? So it wasn't one for really doing much, but sitting at home and chilling out. How about you, mate?
Yeah, similar to be fair. Wherever there was aircon is where I tried to be over the course of the weekend. Either that or just sitting in front of a fan, as I am now, to be honest. And it's probably still not quite as warm. Probably still not quite as warm today as it has been over the weekend, in honesty. It just feels necessary. Yeah, obviously the England game we'll come on to, but that was a big bonus, I think, of the weekend. Obviously the pubs and the like being an absolute killing out of that one, with it being a 10 o'clock kickoff as well, and it going to extra time. And yeah, hey ho, we've made it to a semi-final of the World Cup again.
Yeah, we shouldn't take that lightly, really, should we? We obviously, like when I was a kid, and getting to a semi-final was a rarity. I think 1990 was the first one we'd had for 24 years, was it? But nowadays, we seem to be doing it more often. Obviously, we got to the finals of the two Euros, and we got to the semi-final of the World Cup in 2018, obviously the quarters in 2022. So it's becoming more common, but it's not something we should take lightly, because it could easily be something that doesn't happen for a long, long time. So we should enjoy it, and if we can, the players and the manager and the staff and everyone should grasp the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Then let's take a look back, reflecting on those quarterfinals then over the course of the back end of last week into the weekend. Obviously, we saw the French on Thursday night pretty comfortably cruise past Morocco in the end with that one. Spain obviously got the job done just. They left it late to avoid extra time in their game against Belgium, thanks to Mikel Merino's late winner in that one. Obviously, we said England went early in extra time to get the goal. Now we're kind of holding on a little bit towards the end of it. And then the Argentinians, they got the job done in extra time again. A tricky, to be fair. We thought the Swiss could cause them some problems, and lo and behold, they did. Let's kind of start back at the bottom, Gaz. Obviously, we know it'll be France versus Spain in that semi-final. What did you make of France and Spain's respective performances getting through their quarter-final ties? I personally thought Belgium gave Spain a bit of a go. You know, they gave it a bit of a go, and were unfortunate to end up conceding so late on the way they did, especially with obviously having to lose Courtois later in that game as well to injury.
Yeah, it was a good game, wasn't it? We've talked about Belgium improving as the tournament's gone on. They started pretty slowly. They were fortunate to get past Senegal, and they played pretty well as they've gone deeper. Like you say, Courtois going off injured was a blow. Lamens makes the mistake for the winner at the end. He spills the shot. It's the last hurrah really for, is it Witsel and Benteke and De Bruyne and Courtois? It's their last hurrah. So we might not see those players on the world stage again for Belgium. They've got a bit of a new generation coming through with, obviously De Ketelaere, who scored again at the weekend. I was actually looking at his goal-scoring record. I think he plays for Napoli in Italy, and it's not actually that great, but he's had a decent World Cup. So the Belgians will be hoping that him and his peers will push on, and they can do well in future tournaments. Spain kind of like got through, arguably being the second best team, I think, so far after France, without being absolutely spectacular. Obviously, the first goal is another one that it's Courtois that palms that one out, and they follow it in and score. And they haven't been brilliant, but they've got the job done. And like I say, arguably being the second best team, but Belgium did give them a game, and probably much more of a game than they would have done 2 or 3 weeks ago when the tournament first started. I think Spain-France is a mouth-watering game, and they're the two teams that I picked to be the one of those two to win it. And obviously they're going to play each other tomorrow night now.
Yeah, it's certainly going to make for a very interesting scene. We'll look at that in due course. Let's turn attention to England, and obviously the game on Saturday night that sets up a semi-final against the Argentinians. Don't forget, you can get your comments in to us here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. That's exactly what our very own Stephen Brown has done. He says England versus Argentina. He wants revenge for 1998. Don't we all? As good as that friendly performance was in 2005, just doesn't quite cut it, does it? As a proper revenge mission over the Argies. Yeah, the game then against Norway on Saturday. Look, we've said a few times of this tournament that England have made hard work of it, but ultimately have got the right results. Look, it's the first time that England have gone the first 6 games of the World Cup unbeaten since 1966. If you like omens and things like that, there's your good one.
Yeah, we've not been spectacular, have we? But as you said, I think you worded it right, mate. We've got the job done. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've played well in patches without being consistent. I think that looking at that game in particular, the one on Saturday night, I thought up until the hydration break, the first hydration break in the first half, England were well in control. They weren't creating much, but we were in possession, and Norway couldn't really get the ball off us. And as we've seen with other games in the tournament, that hydration break kind of shifted momentum a little bit. And Norway, I don't know whether it was the little tactical talk that they had of the manager or what, but they responded after that hydration break, had a little bit of pressure. Obviously, England knocked it about at the back and kind of gave them encouragement. John Stones with a short pass. And yeah, from that moment onwards where we were a little bit sloppy with the ball defensively, Norway, like I said, got encouragement and managed to score the goal. I mean, it's a fluke goal. It's definitely a cross for me that sort of drops in at the back post. And the way Norway have been sort of defensively and the way they've been playing, obviously hitting teams on the break, you were kind of worried for us a little bit at that point. But that man again, it's Bellingham, isn't it? I said in the group chat, and I said to my dad yesterday, for me, Jude Bellingham is the best English player since Gaza. I believe that now, and the reason I say that is, I mean, people will talk about Rooney and Gerrard and people from the golden generation, but for me, he does it on the big stage, and he's the first English player that we've had since Gaza that has done it on a big stage, and he feels like he's dragging the team through a little bit. He's obviously there was the debate before the tournament as to whether he'd even get picked, and my God, it's brilliant. It's obviously we're thankful that he did, because he's been brilliant. He's shown his quality, and that first goal, the way he took the ball in from Gordon, it's a good pass from Gordon, but the way he took the ball in and took the touch and fired it across the keeper was fantastic. And even from then on, Chris, I didn't think we were great. I thought Norway would arguably the better side, but we've got the job done, haven't we? And obviously Norway will complain about the disallowed goal, whereas we'll complain about the penalty decision, and obviously Kane's goal, he was offside. Whether the ball hits the TV wire or whatever for the England's first goal is debatable. FIFA are saying it didn't, Norway saying it did, but I think the bottom line is that we've got the quality in Bellingham, and obviously it wasn't Kane last night. The other night, Kane looked a bit tired, but Kane and Bellingham are our 2 match winners, as we keep saying, and we've managed to get the job done. Whereas Norway, Haaland, he was anonymous, wasn't he, mate? Really anonymous.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for us all was when we got to extra time. And I think was it just before? I think it was the half time in extra time, wasn't it? That Haaland was taken off, and we were all just like, "Oh, what a major surprise that was!" As you say, both sides have got the little grievances in the game. Obviously, that disallowed one for Haaland's push on Anderson for Norway that was disallowed. It's one of those. I think 9 times out of 10 they are ruled out. I think there was enough of a shove. And I don't think it was particularly weak of Anderson. I think it's obviously the strength of Haaland, but ultimately, I think 9 out of 10 times you see that kind of go the way it did and be disallowed because of that. The penalty one, I'm baffled by. I think most of us were baffled by it, except for Lou for some reason, who was arguing no end against us in our group chat at the time. But I know me and Jay certainly were on the same page with that one. I just cannot fathom how it isn't a penalty, in honesty. Because it's Spence's prerogative to protect the ball and to make sure that the defender doesn't get it. And if he's touched on behind, whether it's a leg in or not a leg in, but a touch on behind, ultimately, he's entitled to do what he needs to do to protect the ball. A strange one. And then, as you said, the Kane one, that I'll be honest, I can barely remember the Kane offside goal that was disallowed, but it's just it's kind of all rolled into one, I think, with it being quite the late finish on Saturday night. Obviously, a lot's been made of the aftermath. Brown, I don't know why you're putting these questions in, Brownie. Just come and join the studio and come and join us for a proper chat. Come and join us for an actual discussion, Brownie, is the easiest way than just firing the comments in. He says, what do we make of the reaction to the Tuchel and Bellingham comments? I think it's a storm in a teacup myself, and I think within the England camp, it will be a storm in a teacup. I don't think they will give a flying monkeys between them kind of behind closed doors. Obviously, we saw Tuchel, and what for me is just a peculiar I don't know, not quite lost in translation, but it's certainly a major misunderstanding between Gabriel Clark and Thomas Tuchel on the questioning. And then obviously Gabriel Clark has then taken Thomas Tuchel's kind of point about him being unhappy with the performance, which I think is fair. And this is one of the things I think Tuchel's done really well, actually, is for years and years, it hasn't really mattered who's been the England manager. But we've seen England managers come out and basically kind of praise the players on performances where the fans have gone, that wasn't great. With Tuchel, we're seeing him basically, I think, say it a lot closer to how fans are seeing England games this time around. I think that A, adheres him to the fans a lot more, and B, is a really good show of honesty from the man in charge.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I saw some comments, few people.
Oh, have we lost you guys for a second? Hopefully we'll get Gaz back in a moment or two. Don't forget to get your comments in. Let us know your thoughts and views on the World Cup so far. How are England going to do in this semi-final against the Argentinians? Gaz, are you back with us? He's not. He's gone. We will hopefully get Gaz back in a moment or two. Side of Nature, he says we'll stumble over the line against the Argies. Ultimately, I think a lot of England fans... I think a lot of England fans will be the persuasion at this stage that it's more important to get over the line than it is to do it necessarily well. And that's certainly the way that I would look at that one. Is anything we can do to reach a World Cup final for the first time in 60 years is what would be necessary. As I say, let us know your thoughts and views. Get your comments in as well. Come on, Brownie, this is your prime time to get more comments in whilst I'm waiting for Gaz to rejoin. The Argentinians, they of course did it the not so easy way in their quarter-final, needing extra time themselves to get past Switzerland. We wondered beforehand whether Switzerland would cause them problems, and it turned out to be the case. The turning point in that one, you've got to think, is that red card for Breel Mbolo, where the referee initially gives a yellow card to the Argentine defender before he's told to review it. And in the end, a yellow card then comes out for Breel Mbolo, who'd been booked himself not that long earlier. And a yellow card for diving was the decision. Switzerland, to be fair, held on with 10 men to force extra time, but then late on, they just fell at that final hurdle. And yeah, first time since 1998 in a competitive game against the Argies. Let us know your thoughts. How is that game going to go? Brownie, obviously, he wants revenge for 98. This is one of my things. I get slightly ridiculed in our group chats from the other lads on the show regarding the fact that I don't have a dislike for the rest of the home nations, like Lou does, for example. He's really not keen on backing the home nations, but it's sides that have wronged us in the past that I take grievance with. And of course, the biggest one for me is Argentina, when you have to go back to 98 and the whole incident regarding Simeone and Beckham being sent off. Gaz, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. My internet just completely crashed. I had no internet in the house whatsoever. It just went. So I am now hotspotting through my phone. So
sorry
about that.
Let's see how that pans out. Just discussing the England versus Argentina situation. I mean, where do you stand on this? Where's your kind of on a scale of Germany to Scotland? Where did Argentina rank in your scale of dislike?
I think Argentina are right up there, aren't they? Just because of the history that we've got with them. I mean, I was alive in 1986, but I don't remember it because I was 3, so I don't remember the Azteca and the Hand of God and the goal of the century as it was. What I do remember is the period of time in between 86 and 90 must have been the time that I started sort of playing football out on the street with my mates, and I had a few mates that were years older. And I remember them every time the ball hit anyone's hand, they used to say Maradona. And they were obviously like 3 or 4 years older than me. So I remember that. I obviously know a bit about that. And then obviously the 98 thing, remember the 98 thing well. I was 15. I remember clearly what happened, the Simeone thing. And I think we'd have won that game. I don't think there's any debate in that. I think we'd have won that game if Beckham hadn't been sent off. There was still a dodgy call in time added on in that game. In extra time in that game where Sol Campbell's goals disallowed for Shearer fouling the keeper. I've watched it back, obviously, numerous times over the years, and I think you can see why a foul's given, but it's still harsh. Shearer's elbow is up. But I think we'd have won that game. So, yeah, there's obviously a lot of history there. There's obviously the political stuff with the Falklands. And
I was about to say the Falklands would have been just before you were born, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just before, a few years before I was born. So, they're right up there. It's the whole mentality as well, Chris. Obviously, we talk about it with South American footballers. Street fighters, I think that can sometimes be just a fancy way of saying that they cheat and they're happy to cheat. And if they win through cheating, then more than they see that as perfectly acceptable. Whereas for us, it's frowned upon to cheat. And yeah, it's just a different mentality. And it'll be a feisty game on Saturday. On Wednesday night. It's one that I'm looking forward to. Argentina haven't been great throughout the tournament. They've looked good on some occasions and not so good on other occasions. I thought they've been fortunate, particularly against Cape Verde, and I thought they were fortunate again the other night against Switzerland to a certain extent. But it's a huge game, isn't it? And it's one that we'd all love to win.
Yeah, I was just saying whilst you were away, the Swiss certainly caused them some problems. Obviously, they had it level up until and after, to be fair, that Brian second yellow card, which was a stupid one from a player of his ability. So Switzerland were certainly causing them problems. Obviously, managed to hold on with 10 men to force extra time as well. And to be fair to Switzerland as well, it wasn't until 112th minute in extra time. There was only 8 minutes to go of extra time before kind of Argentina actually broke through. So there's certainly signs there that they can be frustrated and signs that we've seen defensively, obviously in the Cape Verde games and others, that they can be got at defensively as well.
Oh, definitely. They really, really can. They've looked susceptible defensively. I mean, you look at the game against, which game am I thinking of? The one before the Switzerland game when they won 3-2. It was Egypt, wasn't it? I watched that game and it was a fantastic game, and Egypt really, really, really got at them and really scared them. And Argentina didn't really start playing until they went 2-0 down, and then all of a sudden something kicked in, and for the last sort of 20 minutes or so they were brilliant. They're definitely susceptible defensively. People talk about Emilio Martinez being the best goalkeeper in the world. He is, but he does have brain farts and he can be got at. He's a character. He's one of those. He lives on the edge. I think he can be got at. They are susceptible, Chris, 100%. And I mean, the fact that Switzerland, I thought Switzerland, from what I saw on the highlights, Switzerland were pretty good for the bulk of that game. Obviously, I think, like you say, I think the sending off is a huge factor. Is it the first time that's happened where the referee's given a foul? And then he's obviously, the VAR have looked at it and said he's dived and it's a second yellow. So he's gone down as mistaken identity, but basically that's what happened. And I think it changes the game. And Argentina obviously go on. The second goal from Alvarez is a fantastic goal. But yeah, they can be got at, mate. They're susceptible defensively as much as Messi and Alvarez and Martinez are a threat going forward. They are susceptible at the back, 100%.
Yeah, it will make for a really interesting semi-final. I'm not 100% sure whether we're going to end up doing a show tomorrow or whether we might do a show on Wednesday and put more focus into previewing England Argentina on Wednesday ahead of that semi-final. So before we go, let's go look at France-Spain semi-final in a little bit more detail. You kind of called this as Spain and France as the two favourites. I think like a lot of people have, to be fair. France are the side that obviously as the tournament has gone on, a lot of people are referring to as just being that top team that have that kind of gap, that golfing quality then to the next side in Spain. Where do you see this game kind of going? Is it going to be the fault? Because so far we've seen basically, with the exception of that first 45 minutes that France had against Senegal when they were really poor and should have been a couple of goals down, since that half-time team talk from Deschamps, France have never looked back. They've never looked troubled in a game. And that, well, it annoys me and makes me think that Spain likely going to be good enough to kind of make to trouble the French, or not really. France just going to have another game where they just turn up and get the job done and keep Spain at arm's length this time, like they have done with so many other nations so far.
Do you know what, Chris? It's hard to see anything other than that happening. France have just made the step up when they've needed to. You spoke about there the first 45 minutes in the first game, and that's the only time they can be criticised because since then they've just met every challenge that they've had head on. They've upped to gear when they've needed to, and they've got the job done. I mean, you look at the Morocco game and what I saw of that, everyone thought that Morocco would be a much bigger test for them, but they just swept them aside, didn't they, really? Morocco couldn't compete. It was a one-way traffic for large parts of that game. I know that Saribi, the striker, was missing for Morocco, the guy who's got a lot of the goals.
Yeah.
But Bouadi, who's had a lot of praise throughout the tournament, just was really struggled. Like I say, France they've got the stars playing as a team, and they're fulfilling the potential that everyone said they had before the tournament. I think there's also an element in there that it's Deschamps. He's going after the World Cup, and there's probably something a little bit, maybe giving them a little bit extra there as well. But the players that they've got, the team ethic, the way they're playing, they just look head and shoulders above everyone else. And like we said, we spoke about Spain and them being arguably the second, they were my second favourites before the tournament. They've shown frailties. Probably, I think I said this in the group chat the other day, the only team that haven't shown frailties throughout the tournament are France. Everyone else in those semi-finals, England, Spain, and
Argentina,
yes, have shown frailties throughout the tournament. France haven't. And for that reason alone, France have to be the favourites in that game for me, mate.
All right. I want you to counter your own point now. What hope do we give Spain, and how does Spain cause France any problems? This could be a very short answer, I appreciate.
Well, I think if France do have a weakness, if they do, it's at the back. I think Upamecano, Saliba can be got at. Saliba and obviously Gabriel at Arsenal get a lot of praise. And for me, I've spoken about this. I think, yeah, they're good defenders, but they're not as good as people make them out to be. Arteta basically protects them a heck of a lot. He has two holding midfielders in front of them, and he has two centre-backs playing at full-back. That's why Arsenal are so solid defensively. Yes, Gabriel and Saliba are good, but they get a heck of a lot of help. Saliba does not get that with France. He doesn't get the help and protection that he gets at Arsenal, and I think he can be got at. Mainen in goal is not the keeper that France have had before when they've had world-class keepers. So they can be got at, but it's been said, hasn't it, throughout the tournament that you need to get at them, and teams have tried and haven't been able to do it. I think the way to do it is to probably Spain have as good a chance as anybody, because Spain will keep the ball and try and keep the ball off France and probe and keep it, and obviously the tick attacker, and it will be very. I see the ball being in midfield a heck of a lot in that game. Me and Brownie spoke a week or so back about Spain not having the wingers, or the wingers not giving them the same threats that they had in Euros 2 years ago with obviously Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal. So that means that Spain are a lot more centralised in the way they play. But that's how they do it for me. Just keep the ball like they do. That's all they're going to do. That's how they play. So they do have a chance if there is in that respect. But it's going to be a hell of a tough game for them. And given what I've seen so far, mate, I can't look past France, like I say.
Yeah, a couple of comments going in. Simon Nature says the other semi-final, this is the France-Spain game, is the real final for him. Michael says France versus Spain really should be the final. Stop saying that. Stop. I don't want to hear that this should be the final because there's a chance that England can make the final. And look, if whoever makes the final deserves to be there at the end of the day. But he says this really should be the final. Both teams have been consistent, never really troubled in this tournament. Spain to a lesser extent. Of course, we saw Spain with that goalless draw against Cape Verde in the opening game. And again, it's one of those that once they kind of got that out of their system, they went on to take control. Yeah. And Jed, he joins us as well from the other side of the world. Cheers for joining us, mate. He says, evening, boys. Spain play possession football and will certainly create chances. So it's not a done deal, this, by any means. There we go, Jed. That is the spirit and positivity I want about Spain, to give me some chance, some hope that France aren't a gimme at making the World Cup final. That's what I was looking for. I mean, let's be honest. From an England or Argentina perspective, it's going to be tough, whichever way that game goes. But ultimately, I think from the way that France and Spain will look at it, is that whoever makes the final as well out of England and Argentina, it's not going to be an easy game. Like, there's a reason that we're at the semi-final stage of the World Cup. All these sides deserve to be there. But it doesn't matter how you get there. If you're there, you deserve to be.
Yeah, absolutely. They've all got players that are match winners as well, Chris, which means a game can be won or can be changed in a split second. I mean, we've talked about England with obviously Bellingham and Kane are our match winners, and if they step up and they do something out of nothing, we've got the opportunity or the chance there to go and win that game. And France and Spain or whoever we'd play against would be wary of that. It's the same with Argentina, isn't it? I mean, we've talked about how vulnerable they've been defensively and how they've sort of scraped through and they've had lucky moments and so the sendings off and etc. But then on the flip side of that, they've got Messi and they've got Alvarez and they've got Martinez and they've got players that have got them through those situations. And there's nothing to say that in a final they couldn't do that again.
Yes, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. I think these two semi-finals. You can see the France versus Spain game is on tomorrow night. Yeah, that's tomorrow night at 8:00. That is on ITV for those viewing in the UK. Whilst England versus Argentina is on Wednesday night at 8:00. And he's on BBC One. I'm sure there's some form of omen over the TV channels as well for England as to which we're most likely to progress. So a couple more comments. Jay says, that reminds me, how's my mate Jay? Positive, sure. Yeah, it's fair to say, Gaz, that when we were last on talking England, Jay wasn't his most positive, shall we say. And Jess just reminded me of that one. Michael saying England players in this tournament have had fitness issues going into this competition. Saka, Rice, James, and John Stones. It says a lot, though, I think, that has been a very fair point and is absolutely true. But it says a lot that players have had these injury issues and these fitness problems, and yet we have still made it to a World Cup semi-final. The first, was it the 2018 we made the semis as well, but lost to Croatia. But we don't reach these semis that often in the grand scheme of things. So the fact that we have made it again is remarkable. How much of that do we put on Tuchel, do you reckon? With the management of the squad, we saw the change that he made, and his in-game changes in particular. It's from those that have gone before, even beyond Southgate.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And like I said at the start, and you said again there, we don't make the semi-final very often. This shouldn't be taken lightly. I think you can look at it both ways. That the players that Tuchel selected have had the fitness issues, and that can be a bit of a criticism. But the depth that we've got in the squad and the way that Tuchel has brought players in when needed and made the changes when needed is a huge positive. And that was what he was brought in to do. That was why he was given the job. He was seen as being the man that can make those changes, obviously in games, but also prior to games, to get the best players on the pitch that we believe can win us those games. And that's what's happened. I mean, great credit has to go to people like Jed Spence, who've come in and been absolutely fantastic when they've been called upon. I thought it was great again the other night. He really
so
was when he
good.
came on. Obviously, Rice had his problems with them. They said he'd been in bed for 3 days, and so that was a bit of an issue for us. He tweaked it. He dropped Bellingham back, and then he brought James on and pushed Bellingham further forward and played James in midfield. That was a bit of an issue, but we've got through. I mean, John Stones, again, he's had his fitness problems all year, but when he's coming in and he's played, he's done really, really well. And John Stones now has a fantastic record with England. I think that the 2 semi-finals he's made at the World Cup, the 2 finals he's made at the Euros, it shows what a player he's been down the years. So, yeah, fantastic management of the squad from Tuchel. Even though the criticism can come through with the injuries that they've had, he's managed it well, and he's brought the players in that have obviously performed when needed. And we've mentioned a few there, particularly like you say, Jed Spence, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon H just says the final will be the highest ever scoring match. I mean, look, it certainly could be interesting. It depends on whether anyone can exploit defensive weaknesses in the French side if they make it. Jed says that Kane had a quiet game but played the 4 minutes. He did. It's a strange one. I think we were kind of clamoring at one point, I think, for Kane to be the man to possibly come off and to give Watkins or Tony some minutes and see what they could offer going forward. Once again, as I say, Captain Kane played the full game, played the full extra time as well. I don't necessarily think he looked knackered or unfit compared to others. He just couldn't seem to get himself really in the game.
I actually thought he looked tired, Chris. I did. But I don't know how much of that was more a case of, as you say, they all looked tired as the game went on, because obviously you're going into extra time. They've just come off the back of the Mexico game where they've played at high altitude with 10 men for a large part of the second half. So, yeah, it looks like he was more involved in the game in the first half, but then England were more positive and had more of the ball in the first half. As the game went on, I thought Norway, obviously, I've said it previously, I thought Norway took over and were now going to better side. And if that happens, your players up at the top end of the pitch are going to struggle to get into the game. So, yeah, I can see both sides of that argument. I did think he looked tired, but he's a
quick
different
counter to that is flip side, I guess. The Norwegians will look at the game and be like, well, how quiet did we keep Erling Haaland? Apart from the disallowed goal, he barely had a sniff.
Yeah, well, I was talking to my dad about this yesterday. I don't know if Haaland looked fully fit. He didn't. If you watched him throughout the game, I think I only remember him sprinting after the ball once. And I know he does a lot of that at Man City. He sort of hangs around and stays in a certain area of the pitch. But he was strolling around. I bet his heat map was really, really telling, because I don't think he moved much in that game at all. And the fact that they took him off, like we say, at half-time and extra time, I think that's telling as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to say as well, like, we talk about Kane, and obviously that he stayed on the pitch and he played the full 120 minutes. I think when your backup striker to Kane is someone like Ollie Watkins, and I firmly believe that Ollie Watkins is our next best option up front after Harry Kane. I don't think there's anyone else there who can take that role at the moment. I don't think there's anybody close. I think Watkins, like I say, is still the second best, but he's a totally different striker to Harry Kane. He's someone that runs in behind. He's someone that will stretch the defence, whereas Kane's someone who will drop deeper and play almost as a false nine. And the squad that Tuchel has taken with the wide players such as Gordon and Madueke and Saka are built into that squad because they will run past Harry Kane when Harry Kane drops deep. So when you change the striker and you bring Watkins on, you're doing it tactically. You're kind of doing it. You need to do it tactically rather than because if you're going to change it,
though, because
it's a different way of playing.
There's a role there, though, that Ivan Toney could fill, I think. He's got them physical attributes to also have the ability to drop deeper. For me, Toney is the second best finisher we've got behind Kane. Although, to be fair, Bellingham was running that close this time by dragging us through these games around at a time. But I'm surprised that Toney hasn't seen more minutes myself.
It is interesting that Toney's not played. That is a very good point. We've not seen any of him, have we, really, so far?
No. JB says, do any of the comments ever get read out on these lives? I've read plenty of comments, JB. Give us something useful and we'll read it out, no doubt. The humidity. I was about to say, when you were talking heat maps in Erling Haaland, I was going to try and use that as a beautiful segue. And then you continue to make another point, albeit a fair one, that the humidity was certainly an issue. Michael saying he believes that the humidity in Miami against Norway was a problem for the England players, which is why Tuchel made so many early changes. Also affected the Norway players as well, both teams. were clearly very tired.
I think that's a fantastic point. I really do, and that is a good point. Well made there. He's spot on.
We'll come back to it in a second because he continues with it. It was the first time Haaland hasn't scored in 15 matches for Norway. Went obviously, Michael said he noticed he was hobbling in extra time. And then Jed also mentioning that Miami humidity took its toll. That after the altitude in Mexico was a telling factor. It's an interesting one. Oh, and actually, Michael's corrected me that Terry did come on as a late sub against Panama. He did. The humidity, look, it's a weird one because we've gone from the altitude issue that we had in the Azteca, and actually, I think overall we certainly didn't make it look like a major issue. Actually, I thought we coped with it a lot better than I expected. To go from that to what was, and everyone was saying it from the press and the pundits that were there as well, stifling heat and humidity in that game in Miami certainly caused its own problems for both sides.
Yeah, it was like 30 odd, but it felt like 40 odd. I mean, I don't want to be running about. I know I'm not a footballer and I'm a fat git, but I don't want to be running around in that. I don't think anybody wants to be running around in that, and it's going to take its toll even on athletes that are trained because they're not used to it at all. And as Michael rightly says, it's the same for Norway. They're not used to playing in it either, but it's bound to have an effect. And I think that is really good point worth making about how tired we spoke about, how tired Kane looked and how tired the other players looked. They're bound to in those kind of environments, especially like you say, mate, off the back of the Mexico game where they had the altitude to deal with, which obviously has a very similar effect on your ability to run around and how tired and worn out you become. So yeah, it's big point worth making, and the fact that we play the next game in an air-conditioned stadium should hopefully make a big difference in that respect.
Yeah, I was just looking to double check that we are back, if I'm right thinking, in Atlanta. Atlanta.
Yeah, they've said it'll be 22. I think they're going to have the stadium at 22 with the aircon, which is obviously makes it a totally different prospect.
Is it Atlanta? It is Atlanta, isn't it? Atalanta is Italy. Atlanta is America. I was getting confused there with how many A's am I putting in this? I'll keep it simple. We're back at the Mercedes-Benz Arena, which is, as you say, got a roof and is air conditioned. So it'll be interesting. I think everybody will be glad of that, if nothing else. Also, they will work in the Argy's favour too. Say again.
Other brands of car are available.
That they are. I certainly don't own one. Right, we'll leave it there, I think. I mean, that's a good old chinwag. Looking ahead, we will try and get back on, I think, on Wednesday. I'm going to try and round up as many of the lads for a daytime show as possible. This will probably fail, fall on its face, and it'll just be back to you and me, probably on Wednesday, to preview the England game in greater detail, to look back on tomorrow night's game. So we will be back on Wednesday, because otherwise these shows are going to be very short and sharp, and we're just going to be repeating ourselves over the England game before we actually get to it. So we'll come back on Wednesday when we reflect on whatever's happened in the France versus Spain semi-final tomorrow. Jed says get Downsy on. I can't. He's at work every day. He won't even use his lunch breaks to join us, sadly.
Is he the only one that's not done one of these? I think he is, isn't he? Because he's been at work. He's at work all. I think even Dave came on for one, didn't he?
Yeah, I think even Dave's done one with me. Downsy, and I've said to Downsy, like, it's your lunch break. You can do what you want with it, but he won't come on in his lunch break or anything. So, look, Downsy will be back on with Huddersfield Town stuff, I imagine, as and when he can do. We may even get Downsy on if we end up doing maybe a post-game England-Argentina review, depending on how it all pans out. But yes, join us back on Wednesday for the next World Cup day. We'll look back at France versus Spain. We'll preview England versus Argentina in greater detail when there'll probably be some more clear squad news of how people are coping with injuries. Although I have to say, looking at everything at the moment from what I've seen and read, everyone seems to be in quite a good place fitness. They even thought that Reece James will be fine. Nico O'Reilly obviously went off injured on Saturday, but according to the Sky Sports News, he should be fine to be included. So hopefully we'll go in fully fit, guys, which would be a welcome bonus. And look, actually, that will throw up a question to pick your squad, pick your 11s for Wednesday. So if you are going to come back and join us Let me know what you would pick if you were Thomas Tuchel. Get your comments in, or you can get me messages in at W Yorks Football on Twitter as well. Is the easy way to do that. Don't forget to give the channel a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's always appreciated to help us get our subscriber numbers up. We're at just over 2,000 at the moment. It was always good to help us boost them up as well. And also it means that any notifications you will get of when we will be next on with whatever shows that come up, whether it's Leeds content, Bradford, Huddersfield Town, our non-league stuff, or for the remainder of the World Cup, these World Cup daily shows. Big thank you, Gaz, for joining me this afternoon, mate.
Welcome, mate. Sorry about that. I will go and hit my internet and see if I can. I don't know. It just completely cut out, so I don't know what. But yes, my phone came to the rescue. My 4G or 5G, whatever it is these days, came to the rescue.
It served as well. Cheers for getting back on, mate. Thanks for joining me as well. Big thank you to everyone that's got your comments in over the course of the afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, whatever you get up to, and we'll speak to you soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Take care.